The moon called Veyrath 7 was a dead place. Its sky was the color of old blood, and its air was poison to most living things. Marcus Cole stood at the edge of his ship's cargo ramp and looked at the destruction before him. Bodies lay everywhere. Not human bodies. These were dragons. The galaxy called them void drakes. They were creatures of legend. They could fly through space itself without ships. Their scales shone like captured starlight, and rich aliens paid fortunes for them. A single scale could buy a small moon. A full hide could buy a fleet, and someone had killed an entire family of them. Marcus walked through the killing field. His boots crunched on frozen blood. His oxygen mask hissed with each breath. Behind him, his crew followed in silence. "Hegemony hunters," said Yara, his second in command. She was a tall woman with gray hair and hard eyes. "Look at the burn marks. Military-grade weapons." Marcus nodded. The Hegemony was an alliance of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. They saw younger species like humans as useful workers at best. They saw creatures like the void drakes as resources to be harvested. "They took everything valuable," said Tomas, the youngest crew member. He was barely 20 years old and still believed the galaxy could be fair. "Why leave the bodies?" "The bodies have no value," Yara said. "Scales lose their shine if you don't remove them properly." These hunters were in a hurry. Took what they could carry and left. Marcus said nothing. He counted the bodies. 2 adults, 3 juveniles, a whole family murdered for decoration, for jewelry, for status symbols that rich aliens would wear to parties. He hated this galaxy sometimes. "Captain," called Dex from 20 meters away. Dex was their engineer, a short man with clever hands and a good heart. "You need to see this." Marcus walked over. Dex was standing next to a pile of rocks near the edge of the killing field. Behind the rocks, hidden from casual view, was one more body, except this one was still breathing. It was a juvenile drake. Not a baby, but not fully grown either. Maybe the size of a large horse. Its scales were pure white, like fresh snow, an albino. Even its blood, pooling beneath its broken body, was pale pink instead of the normal deep purple. The hunters had hurt it badly. One eye was destroyed, a dark hole where something beautiful used to be. Both wings were shattered. The delicate bones snapped in multiple places. Its back legs lay at wrong angles. Something was broken in its spine, but it was alive. Its one remaining eye, pink and strange and full of pain, looked up at Marcus. It did not growl. It did not try to fight. It just looked at him and waited to die. "Poor thing," Dex said quietly. "Albinos are worthless to hunters. White scales don't shine like normal ones. They probably broke it for fun and left it to suffer. We should end its pain," Yara said. Her voice was not cruel. She meant it as mercy. "A quick death is better than a slow one." Marcus did not answer. He knelt down next to the drake. Up close, he could see it was female. Young, probably the equivalent of a teenager in drake years. She had watched her whole family die. She had hidden here and hoped to survive. And now she was waiting for the final blow. "Hey," Marcus said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The drake blinked her one eye. She did not understand his words, but something in his tone made her stop shaking. "Captain," Yara said carefully, "whatever you're thinking, don't. It's illegal to possess a void drake. The Hegemony claims ownership of all of them. If we're caught with her, we lose our ship. We lose our freedom. We lose everything." "She's dying," Tomas added. His voice was sad but practical. "Even if we wanted to help, the medical costs would destroy us. We'd have to sell the ship just to pay for treatment. And she'd probably die anyway." Marcus knew they were right. His brain told him to walk away. This was not his problem. This was not his species. The galaxy was full of cruelty, and one human could not fix it all. But Marcus Cole was not ruled by his brain. He stood up and took off his jacket. He began wrapping it around the drake's middle, making a rough harness. "Captain?" Dex asked. "Help me lift her," Marcus said. "What?" "I said help me lift her. We're taking her to the ship." Yara grabbed his arm. "Marcus, think about this. She's 200 kilos at least. The walk back is 3 kilometers through toxic atmosphere. Your oxygen will run out. You will die." Marcus looked at her calmly. "Then give me your spare tank. This is insane." "Probably. He continued building the harness. But I'm not leaving her here to die alone. Humans don't leave the wounded behind. Doesn't matter what species. Yara stared at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head and started helping with the harness. You're a fool, Marcus Cole. I know. It took all four of them to lift the Drake onto Marcus's back. She was heavy, so heavy. Her broken body hung limp against him. Her pale blood soaked through his shirt. Her one eye watched him with something that might have been confusion. Marcus started walking. The first kilometer was hard. The second was agony. By the third, Marcus could not feel his legs anymore. His oxygen was almost gone. His vision was going dark at the edges. Each step was a battle he was not sure he could win, but he did not stop. Dex and Tomas walked beside him, ready to catch the Drake if he fell. Yara walked ahead, watching for dangers. They did not speak. There was nothing to say. When Marcus finally collapsed on the cargo ramp of his ship, the Drake still strapped to his back. His crew caught them both. They carried the human and the dragon inside. They sealed the doors. They filled the room with clean air. Marcus lay on the cold metal floor, gasping, his body broken with exhaustion. The albino Drake lay beside him, her one pink eye still watching him. She did not understand why this strange, soft creature had carried her. She did not understand why he had risked his life for hers. But she understood one thing clearly. He had chosen to save her when everyone else had chosen to let her die. She would not forget. Marcus named her Solveig. It was an old word from Earth, from a language called Norse that humans had spoken thousands of years ago. It meant strength of the sun. He thought it fit her. White like sunlight, bright like hope. The first month was the hardest. Solveig could not move. Her spine was damaged, and any wrong movement could kill her. Marcus spent every credit he had saved over 15 years. He bought medical equipment designed for species much larger than humans. He stole files from hegemony databases to learn how void drake bodies worked. He barely slept. His crew thought he had gone crazy. Maybe he had. The bone structure is different from anything I've seen, Marcus muttered one night, studying a hologram of Solveig's shattered wing. The healing process requires minerals we can't find in normal markets. We need crystallized void salt. We need refined starite. We need things that cost more than our ship. Yara sat across from him, drinking bitter coffee. And where exactly will we get these things? I have contacts. People who owe me favors. You're going to call in every favor you've ever earned. For a dragon. Marcus looked at her with tired eyes. What would you have me do? Let her die slowly while we watch. Yara had no answer. Marcus called in his favors. Old friends sent rare minerals. Former business partners smuggled medical supplies. A scientist he had rescued from a hegemony prison 5 years ago sent detailed instructions for dragon surgery. Slowly, piece by piece, Marcus gathered what he needed. The surgeries were terrifying. Marcus was not a doctor. He was a salvage ship captain who had learned basic field medicine because space was dangerous. But there was no one else. So he studied. He practiced on simulations. And then, with shaking hands, he operated on Solveig. The first surgery repaired her spine. It took 12 hours. Marcus fainted afterward from exhaustion. Dex found him collapsed on the floor next to Solveig, both of them breathing but barely conscious. The second surgery fixed her back legs. Tomas assisted, holding tools and reading instructions aloud. The young man had stopped asking why they were doing this. He had started believing it mattered. The third surgery was her wings. This was the most complex work. Dragon wings were not just bone and skin. They had special organs that helped them survive in space. Rebuilding them required skills Marcus did not have. So he learned. 18 months passed. The ship stayed in hidden locations, moving whenever hegemony patrols came close. The crew ran small jobs to earn money for food and fuel. Everything extra went to Solveig. She watched them. She could not speak human languages, and they could not speak hers, but she understood more than they realized. She saw Marcus skip meals so he could afford medicine for her. She saw Yara argue with him about money and then secretly sell her personal belongings to help. She saw Dex spend hours adjusting her bedding so she could rest more comfortably. She saw Tomas talk to her every day, telling her stories about Earth and humans and their strange belief that all thinking creatures mattered. Dragons did not bond easily. Her species lived for thousands of years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had learned that most creatures in the galaxy only cared about themselves. But these humans were different. One night, hegemony agents came. Someone had reported the ship. Someone had whispered about a hidden dragon. 3 agents in black armor boarded the ship with weapons ready. "We have received information that you are holding stolen hegemony property," the lead agent said. He was from a species called the Vorn, tall and thin with cold blue skin. A void drake. "You will surrender it now." Marcus stood in front of Solvay's medical room. His face was calm. His hands were steady. But inside, his heart was racing. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "We're a salvage crew. We collect scrap metal, not dragons." The agent smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Then you will not mind if we search your ship." They searched for 3 hours. They scanned every room. They opened every container. They checked every corner. They did not find Solvay. Marcus had hidden her in the only place their scanners could not reach. The reactor shielding. The thick layers of protective metal blocked all signals, all heat signatures, all signs of life. It was dangerous. The radiation could hurt her. But it was better than being captured. When the agents finally left, angry and suspicious but empty-handed, Marcus rushed to the reactor room. He pulled Solvay out and checked her body for damage. She was weak from the radiation, but alive. "I'm sorry," he said, holding her head gently. "I had no choice." Solvay looked at him with her one good eye, and for the first time, she made a sound. Not a roar, not a growl, a soft, low rumble that vibrated through Marcus's chest. It sounded almost like a purr. Months later, Solvay could stand, then walk, then stretch her wings without pain. Marcus watched her grow stronger every day. He watched her test her repaired body, moving carefully at first, then with increasing confidence. On the day she was finally ready, Marcus opened the cargo bay doors. Outside was the endless black of space, filled with distant stars, the void that was supposed to be her home. "You're free," he said. His voice was steady, but his heart was breaking. "You can go wherever you want. You don't owe us anything." Solvay stood at the edge of the cargo bay. The vacuum of space did not hurt her. She was made for it. She stretched her white wings, feeling their strength. She could fly again. She could hunt again. She could live again. She turned and looked at Marcus one last time. He stood there, this small, soft creature who had given everything for her. He was smiling, but there were tears in his eyes. Solvay stepped into space. She flew around the ship once, twice, 3 times. Her white scales caught the starlight, and for a moment, she looked like a comet. Then she vanished into the darkness between stars. Marcus watched until he could not see her anymore. Something inside him felt empty and full at the same time. He had lost something precious, but he had also given something precious back to the universe. "Good hunting, Solvay," he whispered. He did not know if he would ever see her again. He did not know if she would remember him. But he knew, with absolute certainty, that saving her was the right thing to do. And that was enough. 7 years passed. The galaxy kept turning. Stars were born and died. Civilizations rose and fell. And Marcus Cole learned that kindness had a price. It started small. His salvage license was revoked for administrative reasons. No one would explain what those reasons were. When he applied for a new license, his application was denied. When he asked why, the officials smiled their cold smiles and said nothing. Then his crew was arrested. Yara was taken first. The charges were ridiculous. They said she had smuggled weapons. They said she had connections to terrorists. They said many things, and none of them were true. But truth did not matter to the hegemony. She disappeared into a prison ship and Marcus never saw her again. Dex was next. Then Tomas. One by one, the people who had helped him save Solvay were taken away. Marcus tried to fight. He hired lawyers. He demanded trials. He shouted the truth to anyone who would listen. No one listened. Finally, they came for him. He was eating dinner alone in his ship when the soldiers arrived. 20 of them, in full combat armor, with weapons that could destroy buildings, all for one tired human who had once carried a dragon on his back. "Marcus Cole," said the commander, a hegemony officer with scales like green metal. "You are under arrest for theft of hegemony property, interference with legal hunting operations, and acts of terrorism against the Galactic Order." Marcus laughed. It was not a happy sound. Terrorism? I saved a dying animal. That's terrorism now? The Void Drake was hegemony property. You stole it. You hid it from legal authorities. You allowed it to escape. These are crimes against the state. They put chains on his wrists. They dragged him off his ship. They threw him into a dark cell on a transport vessel and left him there for 3 months while they decided what to do with him. The trial was a joke. Marcus was not allowed to speak. He was not allowed to defend himself. The judges were all hegemony species, and they had decided his guilt before the trial began. They showed evidence that was fake. They called witnesses who lied. And at the end, they smiled their cold smiles and read his sentence. Life imprisonment. Blackspire Station. Marcus had heard of Blackspire. Everyone had. It was a prison asteroid at the edge of known space, where the hegemony sent humans who caused too much trouble. The radiation levels in the lower sections were slowly lethal. Prisoners sent there did not serve their sentences. They just died slowly, forgotten by the galaxy. They transported him in chains. They threw him into a tiny cell with walls of black stone. They closed the door and walked away. Marcus sat in the darkness and thought about his life. He was 53 years old. He had spent 30 years flying through space, helping whoever needed help, doing what he thought was right. He had saved hundreds of lives. He had asked for nothing in return. And this was his reward, a slow death in a forgotten prison. The days blurred together. There was no sunlight in Blackspire. There were no windows. There was only darkness and silence and the slow poison of radiation eating away at his body. Other prisoners came and went. Most of them were humans. Most of them had committed the same crime as Marcus. They had been too kind. They had helped the wrong people. They had refused to accept that the hegemony's cruelty was normal. Marcus talked to them when he could. He learned their stories. A doctor who had treated enemy soldiers. A teacher who had taught forbidden ideas to alien children. A pilot who had smuggled refugees away from a genocide. Good people, brave people, all dying together in the dark. His health got worse. The radiation made him weak. His hair fell out. His skin grew pale and thin. He coughed blood every morning and slept less every night. The prison doctors did nothing. Why waste medicine on the dying? Marcus stopped counting the days after 6 months. There was no point. He had maybe 2 or 3 months left. His body was failing. His heart was struggling. Each breath was harder than the last, but he did not regret saving Solveig. Lying in his cell, staring at the black ceiling, Marcus thought about that moment on Veyrath 7. The dying dragon, the impossible choice, the weight of her body on his back. He would do it again, even knowing it would lead him here, to this dark cell, to this slow death. He would do it again, because some things mattered more than survival, because kindness was not weakness, because the measure of a person was not what they gained, but what they gave. Maybe Solveig was still alive out there, flying between stars, hunting in the void, free. That thought made him smile. Then the alarm started. At first, Marcus thought he was dreaming. The screaming sirens, the flashing red lights, the sound of explosions in the distance. It all felt unreal, like a fever dream. But then the walls shook. Guards ran past his cell, shouting orders, grabbing weapons. More explosions, closer now. The whole station was trembling. Marcus pulled himself to the small window in his cell door. Outside, he saw chaos. Guards were firing their weapons at something. Other prisoners were screaming. The lights were flickering. Then he heard it, a sound that shook his bones. A roar that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was not human. It was not any species Marcus knew. It was older than that, deeper than that. It was the roar of a dragon. The wall of his cell exploded inward. Marcus flew backward, hit the floor, and rolled to a stop against the far wall. Dust and debris filled the air. His ears were ringing. His vision was blurred. Through the hole in the wall, something massive entered his cell. White scales, one pink eye, wings that could block out the stars. Solveig. She was enormous now, not a juvenile anymore. A full-grown void matriarch, 120 meters long, powerful enough to destroy battleships with her claws. She had grown into something magnificent, something terrifying, and she had come for him, her head lowered until her one good eye was level with his face. Marcus stared at her, too shocked to speak, too weak to stand. Then he heard her voice, not with his ears. In his mind, a sound like singing stars and burning suns. "You carried me when I could not fly," she said. "Now I carry you." And for the first time in 7 years, Marcus Cole began to cry. Solveig lifted Marcus as gently as a mother lifts a baby. Her massive claws, which could tear through starship armor, held him like he was made of glass. She wrapped him in her wings to protect him from the cold of space. And then she flew. Behind them, Blackspire Station burned. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness. The radiation sickness was killing him. His body was shutting down. But through the haze of pain and fever, he saw impossible things. Ships. Dozens of ships. Hundreds of ships. Flying in formation around Solveig, escorting them away from the dying prison. Some were large warships with heavy weapons. Some were small, barely more than shuttles. But all of them followed the White Dragon like she was their queen. "What is happening?" Marcus whispered. His voice was barely a sound. Solveig's voice filled his mind. "I searched for you. For 7 years, I searched. I found others. Others you helped. Others who remembered your kindness. I don't understand. You will." They flew for hours. Or days. Marcus could not tell. Time had no meaning anymore. He slept and woke and slept again. Each time he opened his eyes, the stars had shifted. They were going somewhere far away. Finally, they arrived. It was a planet, green and blue, like Earth in the old pictures. Clouds swirled across its surface. Oceans glittered in the light of its sun. It was beautiful. Solveig descended through the atmosphere. The fleet of ships followed. They landed in a valley surrounded by mountains, where a city had been built from metal and stone, and hope. Creatures were waiting for them. Not humans. Many species, all different, all impossible. Marcus saw beings he had never encountered before. Tall ones with feathers, small ones with many arms, floating ones with no solid form. All of them were watching Solveig land. All of them were watching Marcus. Doctors rushed forward. They took Marcus from Solveig's claws and carried him into a medical building. The technology inside was advanced beyond anything he had seen. Machines hummed and glowed. Alien voices spoke in languages he did not know. They put him on a bed. They attached tubes and wires. They began working to save his life. Marcus should have been scared. He was dying on a strange planet, surrounded by aliens, far from any human world. But instead, he felt peace. Whatever happened next, he was not alone. He slept. When he woke, days had passed. A human doctor was sitting next to his bed. She had gray hair and kind eyes and a face that looked familiar. "Yara?" Marcus whispered. She smiled. "Hello, Captain." Tears filled his eyes. "They said you were dead. They said everyone was dead. The hegemony says many things. Most of them are lies." She took his hand. "Solveig found us. One by one, she found everyone who was taken because of you. She broke us out of prisons. She saved us from execution. She brought us here. Here? A sanctuary. A hidden world where the hegemony cannot reach. Solveig built it for the broken and forgotten. For every species the galaxy left behind." Yara's eyes were shining. "She built it because you taught her that kindness matters. That saving one life can change everything." Marcus looked around the medical room. Through the window, he could see the valley outside. Creatures of every kind were walking together, building together, living together. A community made of refugees and survivors and the abandoned ones. "All of this," he said slowly, "because I carried a dying dragon on my back." Yara nodded. "All of this." When Marcus was strong enough to walk, Solveig came to him. She was too large to enter the building, so she waited outside, her white scales glowing in the sunlight. Marcus walked to her on shaking legs, supported by Yara on one side and Tomas on the other. Tomas looked older now, harder, but he was smiling. "Dex?" Marcus asked. "Alive. He runs the engineering division now. You'll see him soon." Marcus reached Solveig and placed his hand on her massive snout. Her scales were warm, like sun-heated stone. Her one pink eye watched him with an emotion he could not name. "You came back for me," he said. "You never left me," she replied in his mind. "Even when you let me go, I felt you. Across the stars, across the years, The bond we share cannot be broken by distance. I didn't know dragons bonded with humans. We don't. Her voice was amused. You are the first, and probably the last. Humans are strange creatures, Marcus Cole. You give everything and ask for nothing. You carry the wounded on your backs. You believe, against all evidence, that kindness will be rewarded. And is it rewarded? Solveig looked at the city around them, at the thousands of beings who had gathered because one human had chosen to save one dragon, at the fleet of ships that protected this world, at the hope that burned in the eyes of every creature who had been told they were worthless. What do you think? Marcus laughed. It hurt his healing body, but he did not care. For the first time in 7 years, he felt alive, but the moment of joy did not last. That evening, the warning signals came. The hegemony had found them. Solveig gathered her commanders in a war room built into the mountainside. Marcus was there, still weak but refusing to stay in the medical ward. He watched as aliens of a dozen species reported the incoming threat. 300 hegemony warships, said a being with 4 arms and skin like blue crystal. They jumped into the system an hour ago. They are forming an attack formation. They're not here to negotiate, said another commander, a tall creature with feathers and fierce eyes. They want to destroy us. All of us. They cannot allow this sanctuary to exist. Solveig was silent for a long moment. Her presence filled the room like a force of nature. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm. Then we will fight. We are outnumbered, the blue commander said. Our fleet is 50 ships at most. They have 300. I know. We will die. Solveig turned to look at Marcus. Her pink eye burned with something ancient and powerful. Perhaps, she said, but we will die free. We will die fighting for what we believe, and the galaxy will remember that we were not afraid. Marcus stepped forward. His legs were weak, but his voice was strong. I won't let you die for me, he said. I'm one human. I'm not worth a war. Solveig's mental voice was gentle. This is not about you, Marcus. This is about what you represent. The idea that kindness matters. The belief that all thinking beings have value. The hegemony fears this idea more than they fear any weapon. That is why they want to destroy us. She spread her wings. They will not succeed. The battle of the sanctuary began at dawn. Marcus stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching through massive windows as the hegemony fleet emerged from behind the planet's moon. 300 warships, massive engines of destruction, each one powerful enough to glass a continent. Against them, Solveig's fleet of 50 ships looked like toys. But the 50 ships did not retreat. They moved into formation. They powered their weapons. They prepared to die. And at the front of the formation, leading the charge, was Solveig. She was magnificent in battle. Her white scales reflected the light of weapons fire, making her shine like a star. She moved between enemy ships faster than their targeting systems could follow. Her claws tore through armor. Her breath weapon, a concentrated beam of cosmic radiation, cut through shields like they were paper. But even she could not fight 300 ships alone. All units, engage. The command came from a Vorn admiral, who had defected from the hegemony years ago. He had joined Solveig's fleet because Marcus had once saved his daughter from slavers. We hold the line, no matter what. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded in silent flowers of flame. Debris spun through space. Creatures of every kind fought and bled and died. Marcus watched it all from the command ship, helpless to join them. His body still too weak to fight. We're losing, Yara said quietly beside him. She was commanding the ship now, because Marcus could barely stand. They're pushing through our lines. Another hour, maybe less, and they'll reach the planet. Marcus said nothing. What could he say? He had brought this doom upon them. His kindness had created this sanctuary, and now his kindness would destroy it. Then something strange happened. A new signature appeared on the sensors. Then another. Then 100 more. What is that? Yara demanded. The communications officer turned with wide eyes. Ships, coming out of jump space. They're not hegemony. On the view screen, new vessels appeared. Ships of designs no one recognized. Ships from neutral species. Ships from worlds that had stayed silent while the hegemony ruled. Ships from everywhere. A voice crackled over the communication system. It spoke in perfect human English. This is Captain Jen Wei of the Earth Colony's Defense Force. We heard there was a fight worth joining. Mind if we help? More voices followed. A Vorn commander who had refused to attack the sanctuary. A fleet of traders who owed their lives to refugees Marcus had saved. A religious order that believed in the same things Marcus believed. One by one, they announced themselves. One by one, they joined the battle. The hegemony fleet was no longer outnumbered. How? Marcus whispered. Yara was crying, laughing and crying at the same time. They saw, Marcus, they saw what Solveig did. They saw her come back for you. The whole galaxy saw a dragon repay a debt of kindness. And they remembered that they owe debts too. The battle turned. The hegemony ships, suddenly facing an enemy twice their size, began to falter. Their formation broke. Their advance stopped. And then, slowly, they started to retreat. Solveig's voice rang through every ship in the Allied fleet. Today, the galaxy learns what happens when you hurt someone a dragon loves. Today, we teach the hegemony that kindness is not weakness. Today, we show them that mercy has teeth. She led the final charge herself. Her white body cut through the hegemony flagship like a knife through cloth. The massive vessel broke apart, its commander dead, its weapons silenced forever. And when the debris cleared, the hegemony fleet was running. They had won. The celebration lasted for days. Creatures from every species gathered in the sanctuary city, sharing food and stories and hope. Marcus walked among them, still weak but growing stronger every day. Everywhere he went, people wanted to touch him, to thank him, to hear his story. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had carried a dragon on his back because it was the right thing to do. On the third night, Solveig found him alone on a cliff overlooking the valley. The stars were bright above them, and the city glowed with celebration below. You saved us, Marcus said. We saved each other. Solveig lowered her massive head until her eye was level with his. That is what you taught me, Marcus. That is what you showed the galaxy. We are not alone. We do not have to face the darkness by ourselves. Kindness creates bonds that cannot be broken. And those bonds can change the universe. Marcus placed his hand on her snout. Her scales were warm. What happens now? Now we rebuild. Now we grow. Now we show the galaxy a different way to live. The hegemony still exists. They still have power. But they have seen what happens when kindness fights back. They will never forget. Marcus nodded. He looked at the city below, at the ships in orbit, at the future that had been built from one impossible act of compassion. I was just a salvage captain, he said. I found scrap metal and broken things. That's all I was. Solveig's voice was warm in his mind. You are still finding broken things, Marcus Cole. You find them, and you fix them, and you give them a reason to fly again. That is who you are. That is who you have always been. In the years that followed, historians would argue about how the Free Species Alliance began. They would talk about battles and treaties and political movements. They would analyze economics and military strategy and the fall of the hegemony's power. But the species who were there knew the truth. It began with a man who refused to leave a dying dragon behind. It began with the simple belief that kindness matters. It began with 3 words spoken on a dead moon, in toxic air, with an impossible burden on his shoulders. Humans don't leave the wounded behind. The galaxy had called that belief weakness. The galaxy had laughed at human compassion. The galaxy had punished Marcus Cole for his mercy. But in the end, that weakness had changed everything. In the end, that weakness had set the stars on fire, and somewhere in the void between worlds, a white dragon flew with a human on her back. Not because he was wounded this time, but because sometimes, even heroes need to see the stars from above. Where to now? Marcus asked. Solveig's voice was full of joy. Everywhere. There are more broken things in the galaxy. More wounded creatures who need carrying. More kindness to spread. Marcus smiled. His hand rested on her scales, warm and alive. Then let's go find them. And they flew on, together, into the endless light of a galaxy that was finally learning what humans had always known. That mercy was not weakness. That kindness was not foolishness. That the smallest act of compassion could echo across the stars forever. And that sometimes, when you carry the wounded on your back, they come back for you.